Hey,
Good evening, everybody. It is 6 o'clock, but I just got a call from Marvin just a minute ago, and his computer decided to reboot itself. He and Rita are seeing if they can get that straightened out, and he's also trying to see if he can get signed on his phone. So, knowing the technical difficulties, I thought we'd give Marvin just a minute to see if he can sign on, and if he can't right away, then he'll catch us just in a little while in the meeting. But Devin, otherwise we're recording and live.
That's correct. And I just got an email from Todd and he said he'd be logging in shortly as well. So I think that would put us at full attendance.
Okay. Is Polly on yet?
Oh, you're right. Well, she just popped into the waiting room. So
Okay, good. Okay, so say we're Todd and Marvin. We can go ahead and get started with some things, and I think they can sign on just in quick order. If we could go ahead and call our meeting to order, please. And if I could ask everyone to please stand for a moment of silence. And then Tammy, would you lead us in the pledge to the flag?
be glad to. Thank you. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Each of you should have a copy of the minutes from our last regularly scheduled meeting, if you'd like to look those over for any possible corrections or additions. And if there are none, I'll entertain a motion that they be approved.
I'll make a motion, sir.
Thank you. Polly made the motion,
Second.
and second was Tammy. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Thank you. Minutes are approved. Each of you should have also received a copy of our latest check register. If you could indicate if you received that register. Thank you. Well, I'm trying to follow, Devin, I'm trying to follow the agenda very carefully here, so you don't have to text me to go back and pick up things on a Zoom agenda. Let's see, we have number 5 on our agenda, public comments, and I think there have been some comments entered. Tracy, would you do those honors?
Yes, sir. Dear Mayor and City Council, what is the plan to fill the current police officers' vacancies and fully fund the Public Safety Department? Public safety is quickly becoming a household issue, especially in light of the uptick in violence in the community. Respectfully, Matt Smeeks.
Thank you.
Mayor Prather and City Council members. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Shelby Peel, and I've had the pleasure of residing in Georgetown, Scott County since 2002. Over the years, I have encouraged all my friends and family to move to our great city. The small town charm, friendly faces, and sense of community embodied the vision of where I wanted to live, serve, and eventually raise a family. I have had the pleasure of serving on several community boards, the Scott County Ethics Board, and I currently work for Kentuckians across the state in my role within state government. But this is not about me. This is about you. This is about how those entrusted to govern and guide are failing people like me and families like mine. Today, I am writing to you as a concerned citizen and a fire wife. I am writing on behalf of my family, my husband, who is a Georgetown firefighter, and our second family, the Georgetown Fire Department. It is shameful that a compensation comparison has taken place and that this body of government has not acted and acted swiftly to rectify the atrocity that is highlighted. We are the fastest growing community in Kentucky, yet we do not staff the first responders as we should. We do not budget for them as we should, and most importantly, we do not pay them as we should. Law enforcement, firefighters, emergency medical workers. Do you know how much it costs to hire, educate, and train a new recruit at Georgetown Fire Department? I've heard it's roughly $50,000 to $60,000. This is an investment that will pay off quickly, but only if that employee does not leave the department with their first 3 years. Every year, the city loses dozens of firefighters to surrounding cities because we do not have competitive rates of compensation. We miss the best applicants Kentucky has to offer, and we lose out on retaining quality personnel due to this. You, the city, and us, the taxpayers, are footing a bill for an investment that will not pay off because we cannot retain our first responders. We are losing passionate, dedicated employees with years left to serve to sister cities who have competitive pay and growth opportunities. We are losing historical knowledge and continuity in practice because we are placing a dollar amount on these positions, which does not say you are worth investing in. We want to hire the best. We want to be the best. We want to retain the best. Let me tell you, when you are in a car wreck at 2 a.m., you've hydroplaned and are upside down and your spouse is unresponsive, you're going to want the best. When a loved one has a heart attack, you are going to want the best. When someone breaks into your house at 3 a.m., you will want the best. When your son, daughter, or grandchild chokes, is unresponsive after a nap, or has drowned in a pool, you are going to want the best. You're going to want someone who knows the value of a second, someone who cares, someone who wants to invest 100% of themselves to save you and yours because they are valued, have been invested in, and are the best in the field. Our town, our community, we deserve the best. My family and other first responder families in this community deserve your best. If our town is growing in population, residency, and economically, we should be matching that growth in our emergency fields. These sister cities have nothing on our sweet little town except a body of government who gets it and invests in their people. My family chose the city to invest our time, our resources, and our hearts into. It's time now that you invest back in us. You not only need to shorten the $11,000 pay disparity for fire personnel and the $7,000 pay disparity for police, but you need to close that gap entirely. You need to get serious about funding and budgeting our first responder organizations appropriately. As a city, we cannot grow in volume and not grow in the personnel and physical footprint of these agencies. Each of you were elected with the idea that you would each do your part to make this town a safe place, elected to lead your community and to guide our town into fruitful endeavors. You were elected to serve in the best interest of your constituents. I can think of no better way than through public safety. With the staggeringly low numbers of first responders, our men and women are only able to be reactive instead of proactive at best. We will continue to see the mass exodus of skilled, passionate first responders until you make them and their compensation a priority. I ask that you stop shifting the responsibility, kicking the can, and placing Band-Aids on craters. Yes, we are in special times, which is why it is even more important to maintain what we have. Invest in a true fix. Stop losing the investments we have made. Invest in those keeping our community safe, the ones who never clock out. These men and women are not just numbers on a budget line. They are our heroes. They are the only ones day in and day out physically responding to crisis and danger, protecting, responding to, and holding the front lines of danger at bay. I ask that you unanimously vote not only to support our town's heroes through proper institutional funding, but also to compensate them as such. The welfare of our city depends on this. Most respectfully, Shelby Pill. And I have one more. This was forwarded to Ms. Erdley from Mr. Omrich. He wrote it to the News Graphic. Mr. Scroggins, I wanted to send you a letter to let you know how much I appreciate your news stories on the lack of police and fire protection for our city. There is an issue that affects every citizen. A functioning government main responsibility is to provide a safe environment for their citizens, and our city isn't doing that. I hope you will do more stories on this important issue. Some suggestions are to do a sit-down interview with the mayor and city council. Some suggested questions or investigation would be, why does the council and mayor continually use the pandemic as an excuse? Toyota and the citizens of Georgetown are continuing to work and function, paying taxes during the pandemic. Why isn't the council continuing to work? Do they realize how the current situation is affecting the residents of Georgetown and the current police response times? How did they let the situation get this bad while continuing to tout Georgetown as Kentucky's fastest growing city? Why is Georgetown even now not having a growth moratorium until services can catch up with needs? Why is residential growth continuing to be approved when they know there is no way for it to pay for itself? Why are citizens being asked to suffer consequences like inadequate police protection and greater taxes that are a direct result of the city council and mayor pro-growth stance? When will this situation be resolved? Why are arts, the pavilion, and many other extras being funded when the city has a safety crisis? As a citizen and subscriber, I would love to hear the answers to these questions or find out if they refuse to answer them. Again, you are doing the city and citizens a great service reporting on this issue. Respectfully, John Omrich. And that's all I have.
We will, I'm sure that later in the meeting, we'll have an opportunity to discuss just about all those questions that were raised. And I'll be happy to, if anybody will remind me later, I'll be happy to address every single one of them. Under mayor's comments, just briefly, first off, it's one of the last times you'll hear me talk about, well, you'll have two more chances to hear me talk about census data and the opportunity to still respond to the census. Right now, the city of Georgetown is at 76%. Deadline for responding to the census has been shortened a bit. It is now September the 30th. So wanted you all to be aware of that. Also, I'm sure you all have noticed, because almost all of our citizens have, that Rural King has opened. There was a lot of excitement about that. Chase is on the call with us, and I want to thank Chase for some last minute efforts that we worked with Chase, and Chase worked with Rural King's developers to get them to the point where they could open on the day that they did. That was in real question for a few days, Chase, but we appreciate your help in making sure that opening happened when it did. Also, if you haven't had a chance to try the new roundabout yet, I hope you will. As folks get used to it, I really think it'll be helpful with the traffic flow out there. And we checked this afternoon just because we were uncertain about the super recycling day this year. It's a time that a lot of our citizens wait for and they save hazardous materials or paints or electronic equipment waiting for a safe place to dispose of it. And as of right now, Super Recycling Day at Toyota is still scheduled for September the 18th and 19th with the times to be determined. So I hope we can hold those dates with everything going on, but did want you all to know that we're optimistic that we'll be able to go ahead and have our Super Recycling Day this year. And that is all of the mayor's comments that I had this evening.
Hey, Tom,
Yes, sir.
I'm down here at Tim's house, so I am on listen finally, so I'm here.
Good. Thank you, Marvin. I appreciate you trying so hard to get on with us. And Todd's here now, so we have a full slate.
Mayor, you've got that event. Well, it's not really an event, but that Paint the Town Teal
Yes,
in the packet.
we do. Turn the Town Teal, a national awareness campaign for ovarian cancer. Let's see, Devin, they want me to sign this letter indicating that we support the Turn the Town Teal campaign to show our support and awareness, not support of, but our awareness of ovarian cancer. And they've asked me to sign this and send it back. I would feel better about signing that if it was a council motion to direct me to sign this letter of support to create awareness of
So
ovarian.
moved. So moved.
Okay, thank you. Tammy with the motion, and
I'll second.
thank you, Polly. Is there, if there are no questions, further questions about that, all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Devin.
Mayor, can I ask a question about the census?
Yes.
So if we're at 76% and we have until September 30th, at that time, is that when they start, the workers start going door to door for the people that they didn't get responses from, or is that included in the time frame?
They already started that process, Tammy.
Okay.
And apparently there was some pressure for some federal officials to end the census activity, and they are ending it. Originally, due to the pandemic, the census had been extended through December. But now I think there's been some federal pressure and it's going to end earlier than that. So the door-to-door, Tammy, is going to be severely limited this time. And the fear is that it's the door-to-door where we get folks that are typically undercounted. So
Right.
it's important that as elected officials, if we can get somebody to respond, it's a really good year to do that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Chase, under GMWSS, I think you have a couple of requests for us.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
sorry. One more thing, it's a job fair that the county wants to hold in the back parking lot that needs approval from the council.
Okay, do you have the date? Do you have the date, Stacy?
Yes, sir.
Tracy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It is.
It's tomorrow. They got in right under the wire there.
Tomorrow at 8:30.
Right.
Well, they did just barely get it in under the wire. So they're going to set up in the back parking lot behind City Hall.
Yes, yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Thank you, Todd.
Second, Mayor.
And a second from Tim. No, it's not Tim, it's Marvin. You're showing up as Tim on the screen, Marvin. That confuses me.
Yeah, I'm confused.
Thank you. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Thank you. Now, Chase, I think we're ready for you.
Thank you, Mayor. Georgetown Municipal has 2 purchase orders for council consideration tonight, and I will run through those both real quickly to give you an overview. The first is for GRW Engineers in the amount of $100,001.71. This is for continued work on the design services for wastewater treatment plant number 1 upgrade and expansion. And this is for the June billing period, which gets us just about to 80% complete on the design. We have a couple of major project milestones coming in September. We will conduct our first public meeting for the project. That'll be September 1st. That'll be conducted virtually. We also look to conduct, or not conduct a public meeting, but bring a project update on the what we are designing and plan to advertise to the Board of Commissioners, and then hopefully the council as well next month. And pending approvals of our regional facilities plan and our permit application for the construction of the plant expansion, we hope to really start looking hard at an actual date to advertise for bid on this project. So a lot happening on the upgrade and expansion of Plant 1. We're excited with our schedule. We're excited with our design. So we hope to have more information than just the normal purchase order for council in September. Second purchase order is for Southern Sales in the amount of $14,390. This is an equipment purchase for pedestals and control panels for multiple pump stations, and both of these, the equipment for both of these pump stations were both budget items in our FY budget. So I have these two purchase orders for council consideration, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Thank you. I guess we can take those together. If anybody would like to make that motion.
I will.
Thank you. Motion's been made
Second, Mayor.
and seconded. Thank you, Mark. If there are no questions for Chase on these two purchase orders, all in favor say aye.
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 Thanks. Are there any opposed? Good. Listen, just so you all know, it seems to me like Chase has got about 3 different full-time jobs right now. He's chasing several projects that require 100% of his time, but he's got several of them to do. And I want you all to know that he's making real progress on the South Sewer Line, trying to wrap up some easements, and we'll have something to report to the council, hopefully in the not distant future, Chase.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Team effort down here, and as well as with working with the city staff as well. And I'll be on here if I can answer any questions on your agenda item number 8 from the Georgetown Municipal standpoint.
Sounds good. I appreciate you sticking around. Thank you. Let's see. Item 8 under City Attorney is first reading of an ordinance, and there is a remarkable amount of conversation about our first responders, and could not be more gratified with the amount of conversation that is being generated community-wide concerning first responders, all of our first responders, both their salaries and the head count. So I'm very pleased with the way our community has responded with their attention. Now that attention goes in a lot of different directions with a lot of different ideas. But I am delighted that our community is so vitally interested in the current and future conditions of our first responders. So in that regard, we've worked on some financial analysis for a while, and it laid a foundation. But we're now at a particular point in time where the Finance Committee has worked on a very specific proposal for the council tonight. And I'm going to respectfully turn it over to Connie and David to present this, and be happy to help them answer any questions about the way it might work or the way we might implement these suggestions. So Connie, which one of you two folks is gonna start this conversation?
Go ahead, David.
I'll be glad to. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Mayor, first of all, we want to thank you. We want to thank you and your administrative staff for putting together the comprehensive study I guess it was early last year. It might have even been sooner than that, quite honestly, when this when you told us that that you were working on something that was going to be very helpful to the council and certainly to the community. So anyway, we certainly want to thank you for bringing this information to us. Obviously, the COVID-19 kind of changed the direction of where we were headed. It obviously delayed things for a little bit, but at this time, the finance committee wants to recommend. We recommend and support moving forward on generating some revenue to help cover some of the city's financial shortfalls, specifically as it relates to the dispatch for 911. I know the ordinance outlines all the details and some of the terms that we're going to talk about tonight. Connie and I have had the opportunity to speak, obviously with the mayor and with his staff, but we've made a special attempt to communicate with everyone on the city council to kind of go through some of the information and not just to give them our thoughts, but actually to ask for input. And we've gotten a lot of input really from everybody. Everybody had a suggestion, had a thought. And it seems like for the most part, we all realize we have a problem that we need to deal with. And that's the financial shortfall for 911 and dispatch. And if we can remedy and resolve that issue, that's going to take some pressure off the general fund to allow us to fill the positions in the police department and to get the pay where it needs to be within the police department, within the fire department, and within dispatch. We've communicated, in addition to all the council members, we have communicated with the county judge to make him aware of what we're proposing and how that might impact the budget for county government. So they are aware of that. We've spoken with both chiefs, with the fire department, with the police department, and even some of the staff, the assistant chief with the police department, in regards to what our proposal was going to be to the council. And this is obviously a council decision, but we have that recommendation, and that's the ordinance that you have tonight. Obviously, there is a fee structure involved, and that fee structure starts off at $6 for the first year, $7 for the second year, and the third and ongoing years, it would be $8. And of course, that would be at the discretion of the council in years to come. But the amazing thing about setting up the fee in this manner is over the next 15 years, it essentially allows the 911 department to be covered, for those costs to be essentially covered. The other thing that goes along with this that is important to know, that if for some reason that we generated more revenue than was needed to cover those costs, that we would actually have to either do a refund or we'd have to adjust or modify that fee. So only the money that would be generated would go towards 911 and dispatch. It can't go anywhere else. But obviously the thing that we're looking forward to is by covering 911 and dispatch, that'll take pressure off the general fund to allow us to hopefully make some of the payroll adjustments to the police, the fire, to dispatch, and we do recommend a raise to all city employees. We can kind of go through that. Essentially, the first thing, though, that we need to do, the fiscally responsible thing that we feel, is to go ahead and get the 911 fee passed, which we know this is the first reading. So in a couple more weeks, we hope to have the second reading. And perhaps some things could change. We hope that doesn't take place. The mechanism to collect this revenue is being proposed through the GMWSS, through the water company. Obviously, we have a couple of avenues. One would be the GMWSS, the other would be through the property tax bill. But after a lot of discussion, a lot of debate, and there's nothing wrong with either one of them, but at this time, GMWSS, we have the relationship with GMWSS. They are very willing to help us do this. And as you may have seen in the ordinance, there could be a fee structure of up to 7% of the revenue could go to them to help them administer this fee. As everyone knows, in the next few years, there's going to be an additional, I think it was $225,000, essentially $250,000 a year for the maintenance of our upgraded 911 system would kick in. And that was one of the reasons that we thought having a tiered structure would be beneficial and very important moving forward. Let's see. So if we can get this in place, and I know there may be some other discussion, but we're planning at the next meeting to propose the increase for the police, fire, and the 911, as well as all of our other employees. We can get into the details of that, but we're really talking about the 911 fee. So Connie, if you want to add anything to what I've said in regards to the 911 fee, there are a lot of benefits. I do want to point out that if we can get the fee in place, it's going to allow us to make the adjustments to the pay scale that we want to make. I've said it, but there are a lot of benefits to that. We get to retain experienced employees. That's huge. It improves the hiring process. It helps the departments become and stay fully staffed. We know that's important, especially for the police department right now. It improves morale. We all certainly want that. It saves the city money from having to train so many new employees because of the constant turnover that we seem to have. It helps the departments. It helps the departments protect our citizens, which is really our number one priority. And it should send a very strong and positive message that we support our police, our fire, and our dispatch. And we are going to enforce the law in Georgetown, Kentucky. There were other options that were considered to help fund 911 and the dispatch, and one of which was simply taking reserves. And but we didn't feel like that was a long-term solution. We felt like putting the fee in place to cover dispatch was actually solving the problem. So that's why we came with this particular recommendation. So anyway, Connie?
Well, David, actually, you said everything really well. And again, I'd like to reiterate that the information that the mayor and his team brought to us really enlightened us and educated every one of us on council. Unfortunately, COVID was not anything any of us could be predictive about. And at this point, we promised to do what we've done, and that's to keep on reevaluating income as it came in and our revenue sources. And because we were ready to do something like in February before this took place. It was just like crazy. But again, like you, I've gotten emails and phone calls from people to, respect our first responders and their raises and alleviating. We're actually making the 911 self-sufficient is going to take the burden off the general fund for us to be able to talk about that in a couple of weeks. Because this is the whole reason why we're moving forward. And this is just the first piece of the puzzle. And the mayor has really laid all of this information out for us very specifically and very, very eye-opening for all of us. So this is just the first step, and I just appreciate their hard work. And I think that things are looking up for us to move forward and to make things better for our city. So that's all I have to say. I think you did a good job, David. Thank you.
Mayor, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. where is the spreadsheet that goes along with the numbers of what, because no one said how much we're producing out of the numbers, how many units. It's on the sewer bill, not the water bill. I think David told me that over the telephone. And why the sewer bill versus the property tax? Is there a difference in numbers? We didn't get a spreadsheet on any numbers, and that's kind of concerning because it's a big deal. It's a big step, and it's actually, I put a little poll on my Facebook and got a lot of responses. I was really surprised, a lot of good responses to it. And I think we need numbers, a spreadsheet of what we're talking about, what the numbers are, where we're going to use 911, what it offsets, like a whole big picture, not just a little snapshot. Okay, we're going to do this. And of course, everybody that's responded to it, even if they don't like the taxes, they say it has to go to help the police, the fire, our first responders, which I feel like that's going to happen. It sounds like David said that would happen next time. We'd see that first step in that. But it would have been nice to have seen actually documentation to have laid out all the numbers that go along with this, because I've got a $6 fee, but I don't have what's the anticipated $6 fee is going to bring us. And I don't have anticipated what that takes care of with that $6 fee. We've talked about the 911, but what's that taking care of? So I wish we'd had a spreadsheet to go with it.
That's a very good question. And the spreadsheets that Stacy was kind enough to provide were kind of evolving as the discussions took place, but I'm sure she can share the latest spreadsheets. And I think that is very good and very helpful. And that's why we're having a first reading. And then to answer a little bit of your question, the revenue that would be generated from the fee, whether it was with GMWSS or whether it was on the property tax bill, according to Stacy, it should be essentially the same, because it's going to be based on the units, the individual units versus the individual properties. So at the end of the day, there should be very little, if any, difference. So the way we see it, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another.
Do we actually have the figures of what that is?
There are about 13,000, roughly, maybe just a little over that, when you add the commercial users on top of that. Of course, this year we would only be generating about half the revenue, because we won't really be able to implement and start collecting the money until probably about the 1st of January. So we are going to miss out on half a year's worth of revenue. If it had gone on the property tax bill, it would almost be impossible to get it in place this year. So it would be something that would have to go in place next year. So that was another problem that we kind of ran into with the property tax bill. We felt like there were more benefits with GMWSS and their willingness to help us administer and kind of dig down into the details and confirm the actual number of units.
And to tack onto that and answer another piece of your question, Karen, David identified one piece of research that would be uniform no matter how we seek the fee, whether it's property tax bill or a utility bill. And that piece is determining the number of units. So a property tax bill goes out and it's on a parcel, and that parcel could be the mill. And of course, there are hundreds of units there. So each unit, if there's a family that is going to benefit from the opportunity or the availability of 911 service, that unit is going to pay the fee. So say on the same token, if there's a master meter for a 10 unit apartment complex, if that person paying the meter is going to pay $60, and it's their job to recover that fee from their tenants. So it's per user. So same thing on a commercial unit. If there are 6 businesses on one strip, they're all paying the same fee. So that's the part of the research that is uniform however we do it. And that's something that there's not necessarily data on. And we've thankfully, Chase and Sean and the folks at GMWSS have been really helpful. And I'm sure the PVA's office would be the same. Just based on our research, we determined this was the best way for a city in our position to assess this fee. But that research is the same. And that's the piece that, there's room for some research, which, that's one positive of us not being able to actually impose the fee until December, is that we have this opportunity to, one, seek out those really big players, those huge apartment complexes, and make sure they're really paying their fair share of the fee. And then also some of the smaller multi-unit buildings. So we've kind of talked to GMWSS about that, but we have a range of units we expect to collect from. And like David said, I know Stacy would be glad to share that with you guys, even though it's preliminary and evolving day by day as we try to get closer to that perfect number. One other thing, you said you were talking about whether it's on the water or sewer bill. Some people, GMWSS identified 8 different classes that get their bill. So, you get water, sewer, garbage, you just get water, sewer. Well, there shouldn't be anybody just getting water, sewer in the city, but so there's some people who might just get garbage. I think, there are small classes that only get that, but for the most part, everybody in the city should get a bill, especially because we have mandatory garbage pickup. So we asked them to kind of give an estimate based on number of parcels and number of bills they send. And they projected that there might be about 160 properties that don't get a bill from them, which would be 1%. And so we're going to look into our vacant properties log and some other items, because that could be the explanation for those not getting a bill, is that the property is completely vacant. So we've kind of taken that percentage and we're going to try to pare that down to assure that very few people fall through the cracks, because we do want this to be equitable across the city, and we want everybody to participate equally and pay their fee.
Devin, have you talked with other cities or counties who have imposed this fee? And if so, what mechanism do they use?
Yes. So 3 of the counties I've spoken with, actually 2 of the counties I've spoken with, do it through the property tax bill. And they indicated that works for them because they have the appointed official of PVA in-house, and that's just something that their PVA was willing to do for them. I think ours would be too. It would be a big undertaking for his office, and I think we would owe them the same kind of a fee for that service. But cities I spoke with do it via utility bill, for the most part, utility bill. And point being the same reason, they don't have the in-house PVA. They find it simplest to impose. Some of the cities I spoke with actually said, we just tack the fee on a water bill and we don't worry about the number of units, which that kind of alarmed me because I don't really think that lends itself to a user fee. But they said that they impose that with their county. So it varies, but I didn't speak with another city that does it via property tax bill. I'd be glad to continue looking into that. But in the limited research we did, most of them use a utility bill.
The other thing that I had an opportunity to speak with the Finance Committee about is if this is added to the water bill, then it's going to come to our citizens in very small, manageable increments throughout the year, as opposed to a lump sum on a property tax bill that might be more difficult for some people. So it just seemed like it would be easier on a monthly basis.
Most people in Georgetown, that is one thing. They even tell me that they don't complain so much about their property tax because it is very reasonable, but lots of people have complained about the water bill. And for consideration, this is going to, if it passes, it's going to go up next 2 years. It's going to increase. And the water bill, we put in a rolling increase for the water bill. So the water bills are going to go up. So I really think the general population would prefer to have it laying on their property tax than they would have it on their water bill. That's kind of feedback that getting on that.
That is, if I can pipe in, Karen, that's a big feedback that I get from people is the water bill and just how much, it has gone up. I did have actually a question for David. You said something about it taking 15 years to.
Well, Stacy actually ran a spreadsheet showing us what the next 15 years potentially could look like with new employees coming on and with various other adjustments. And the 6, 7, and 8 managed to essentially cover the cost for the next 15 years. There are obviously going to be a lot of variables. We don't know what inflation is going to be like over the next 15 years, but she did the best that she could. And like we did say, if we happen to collect too much in the future, that number should be adjusted, but it will be adjusted, has to be adjusted because it can only go towards covering the 911 cost. It can't go towards covering other things.
Okay. The reason why I ask is just kind of doing quick calculations because I was trying to get the amount of bills that it would go out on, so 13,006 a month. So it looks like we're going to be maybe around 950, something like that. Our 911 call center, the salaries are 734,298, but the total compensation package for retirement, health insurance benefits, and everything is 1.25 million. So, it doesn't look like it's going to cover it the first year. A question that I've been getting from people, when you're out and about and also online, people are just really concerned about our first responders and they want to see the pay raised to average. And for the police, that would be 8,600. I think for the fire, what would it be, Karen? About 11,000?
Yes.
Something like that. Yeah. And kind of, just from, watching it over the years, we've done little bits here and there, but when you do little bits here and there, you actually get behind because you're not making that jump. And, I don't know about you all. I'm sure you all feel the same way as I do. But the last 2 or 3 weeks for our police, fire, and EMS has just been harrowing and chilling. And even the situation at Applebee's, there was a woman having dinner and then she had a casing down the back of her shirt. So I feel, that things are just really at the crisis point. I almost feel like, we're in a war and somebody's been injured and they're bleeding out. And I think we have to stop the bleeding. And, I know we did the study back in the spring, but unfortunately, we just live in a different world right now, with the violence and the COVID and shutdowns and having just the worst economic disaster, which many say since the Great Depression. So I've had a number of people come to me and ask that we do $8,600 raises for our police. I did an online poll, and I should have not been surprised, but I was shocked. 90% of the people that took it said we needed to do $8,600 raises for our police. 95% were extremely upset that we're losing experienced personnel. And, I think we have been, as a community, extremely lucky that something has not, there have not been more fatalities and things have not gone worse. So I've had a number of people ask me about the Cardone money, about using that as a bridge. And then in January, when things calmed down, as the mayor, David and Connie had said, we're going to re-examine our finances then and go forward and come up with a plan to do this. And I appreciate, about the 911 call center and the 911 fees, but I feel we're just in an emergency situation now, just right now. And the last thing I'll say, I did have several people bring up to me regarding the business park and bond issues. And back in May of 2017, in a meeting, the mayor brought up that we were taking money, from the general fund for the business park, that perhaps we could do a bond issue to reimburse the city for those expenses. So that's something that I think we can look into. I really appreciate the work everybody's done, but I just think we need to look at some other things. And also with, unemployment right now and so many people living paycheck to paycheck, it is just such a struggle for people. And, for some people, the $6 a month is, easy, and other people it's not. And, I'm just putting that out there that's what people have brought to the table for me. And, I just think our first responders, our police, our sanitation, they're just stellar, and we need to be at least average. And one last thing I'll say is, I know, David, y'all had talked about saying something at the next meeting regarding salary increases. If we do decide to do this 911 fee, we really need a date and a plan for this, because I think things are just at such a crisis level right now. So, and I did send most you all on the council a little information about, what people had said to me. But I just want to say, I know everybody's on the same page with this. Everybody, really wants to, take care of our first responders. And I, I just think we're working together to make this better. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate your comments. You're right. I think most people do agree that we need to get them to the level that the study indicated. We just think that right now that this is a very big first step. It's a good faith first step. And we've talked to the administration in both departments, and they gave us the same encouragement that this would be a very big positive first step. There's still a lot of uncertainty out there with the economy. So our thought would be, once the 911 fee passes in a couple of weeks, that we could come in and we could implement a $5,000 increase for the police, for the fire, and essentially those in dispatch as well that would be eligible for that. And then a $1,000 increase for all city employees. And part of the way that we justify that, and keep in mind that would be a first step. Once we've gotten through a couple more quarters through the end of this year, and we have a better handle on where we are financially, and we'll have the ability to address other revenue streams, as the mayor has pointed out. But if we do the $5,000 for the police, fire, and the 911, $1,000 for all other employees, we kind of need to keep in mind, Connie brought this up, that there was a stimulus check that went out. Most of our employees, probably all of our employees, received at least $1,200 if they're individuals, and if they're a married couple, it'd be $2,400. And then on top of that, we picked up the additional insurance cost, which was, I think it was like $428 per employee. The other really nice feature with the city is no one was laid off and no one was furloughed. So it's really our hope that at the end of this year, all of our employees can look back and say, hey, you know what, this was, in spite of a really difficult economy and a lot of people being laid off and challenges financially, our city employees were pretty well taken care of. We want to get to the same place you want to get to. We just think this is the most fiscally responsible first step. We're not saying that's going to end here by any means. We just think let's do this right now while we can. We know there's an emergency. It seems to be an emergency, and we want to deal with the crisis at hand. We agree. We're on the same page on that. It'd just be a two-step process, perhaps. And the other thing that you're right about the fee. It would generate close to $1 million a year with the $6 fee. Keeping in mind, we would only get, half of that essentially for this budget year. So we would be coming up a little bit short this year. Next year, the $7 would kick in. And the other thing that we've been told is that dispatch is undermanned. They need more manpower. They also need, I believe it's an assistant or a higher level type person, like an assistant shift supervisor. Stacy could tell us the terminology on her. I'm sure the mayor could as well.
Assistant coordinator.
That's it. But they're undermanned as well, and we've got to address that issue. If they can't take the call, then the police aren't even going to know, or the fire's not even going to know about the emergency that's taken place. So that's a good point. But we are going to have to hire some more people, and then in a couple more years, the additional $250,000 a year for the maintenance of the 911 system is going to kick in. So that's why the fee was bracketed as it was bracketed, so that it would be as reasonable as we could right now, and then it would gradually catch up and cover the expenses that we're going to be incurring.
Okay. Well, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate it. But just to let you know, from the people that have reached out to me, the police, the fire,
yeah,
5,000 is just it sounds like a lot, it's a bump up, but when you're 11,000 under, that's not even halfway. And, with the police, they have the police and fire both, I've talked to Chief Colson and Chief Bossy, and they have been extremely patient over the years, with us, with the city, with finances. And, it's not making them up to average, when they're supposed to be at 8,600 and it's 5. And then also, with other salaries going up in other departments across the board, other departments such as, our downtown city hall have gone up quite a bit. I mean, are you just against using the $1 million from Cardone right now? I mean, are you just totally not open to that?
We think that right now it's a good idea to hold on to the reserves. I mean, there's still a lot of uncertainty through the rest of this year. We're not saying we're not going to need it. We're not going to use it. We're just saying right now, we absolutely know that we need a revenue stream to cover this additional expense, because it's going to be an ongoing expense. If it was a one-time event, then sure, pull reserves, pay for the one-time event. But this is going to be ongoing year after year. And we just feel like we need to address the problem going forward as well.
I think, and something, I've been explaining to people, and I know you and Connie, the mayor, know this better than anybody. It's your reality. But, in 2015, before I came on the council, the Toyota stimulus, the Toyota incentive program came through.
Right.
And, from 2015 to 2019, the city has been down 2.5 million, with
Right.
that incentive. And then, $1 million for the next couple of years. And, as I tell people, I think things have gone really well considering there was that, that hanging over you. But in 2023, or actually 2024, I'm sorry, it goes down, to 325,000. And then 2025, 2026, it ends. So, we're going to have that. We're going to be through with that. And that's going to free up, a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
And, I think sometimes, we have all been, kind of struggling under that. And, that's something that people forget. But I just, I understand where you're coming from, but I just feel the world is unfortunately at such a different place than it was back in the spring when, we did all these presentations. And, I find the violence just chilling. And in our police committee meeting, the chief mentioned that some of the people that they think might have been involved with the Fayette Mall shootings, could be related to here. So I just think we have been so lucky that something worse has not happened. And, we owe our first responders everything.
Sure.
When you have an accident or you've had a situation where you have to call them, it's life or death.
That's right.
It truly is.
I agree. There are a
Dave,
couple
could I
other.
help you answer the Toyota? Could I help you answer the Toyota Cardone money?
You
I
please.
have some history there that might be helpful. Just early when we received the $1 million gift from Toyota at the time of their groundbreaking, and we invested that money into Cardone, and we finally received that money back. One of the understandings with Toyota at that time was that this gift would be used for some community purpose, specifically not operational expenses. The Toyota did not give us $1 million gift to pay our bills with. I think they anticipated that we would provide enough revenue to pay for our employees and not have to use Toyota's gift to make that happen. I will say that one of the most fundamental budgeting and finance rules that there are is that using one-time money for recurring cost is simply irresponsible. Using debt to pay operational cost is irresponsible. The only way to do this is to eventually match our true expenses, and not just the raises, and not just to get us ready for an election, but to also look at the cost for the additional headcount that we know that is necessary. And knowing what those costs are and knowing how we have done the analysis to present what those solutions cost, any statement of support for first responders, but no revenue, is a hollow and meaningless statement.
Well, I don't think so. And I don't think Toyota would want.
Simply saying, I support first responders, but I don't have a plan for any recurring revenue, and I'm not in favor of recurring revenue, it's a kind of like buying a house with a 40-year mortgage because somebody gave you the first year's payments, but you don't have a clue how you're going to make the second year's payments. You know you need revenue, but you won't get a job. You won't raise the revenue. I just want us to have realistic conversations. Our employees deserve that we have real conversations and not magical thinking. Our employees deserve better than to be misled by thinking that all of this can be solved magically with no revenue. It's silly.
Well, if I can speak now, trying to come up with different ideas and different ways of funding is not magical thinking. That is called thinking outside of the box and trying to make things work. On it, I said, we need to have, you all had done a comprehensive plan in January. And I had already mentioned earlier in the meeting that I would like to do this right now. And then in January, do a plan that would work it out and finance it. And that's how we would do it. And also, I think it's irresponsible not to fund the police and EMS right now. And number 3, I had asked about the bond issue back in 2017. You mentioned we could possibly do a bond to reimburse the general fund for expenses from the business park. And I would like to ask David about that and get your thoughts about that, David.
Holly, we can certainly borrow money anytime we want. It's obviously not an easy thing to do. There's expense involved and you got to pay it back. That at the end of the day, you got to pay it back. You got to qualify and you got to pay it back.
Well, the business part will generate the revenue though, so we can pay it back, correct?
Hopefully in time it will. That's right.
Doing really well. It's doing really well, I think.
It's doing pretty good. It's taken some time though, quite honestly. When you do a project like that, there's many years that go by where you're actually having to feed it and subsidize. And we did that. And the rewards that we've gotten have been the fact that Toyota was able to bring Lexus to Georgetown, or they were able to bring the RAV4 to Georgetown, or BCTC came to Georgetown. It wasn't the money that we got from selling that lot. We're taking a loss. Every time we sell a piece of real estate at the business park, we take a loss on the actual sale of the land. The benefit to the city are the tax benefits that we get off of it. It's the property tax, the payroll tax, the insurance tax, the net profit tax. It's all those things added together over the long term. So those things don't happen real quickly. It does take some time. Polly, the other thing that I wanted to mention to you, because you asked the question, in the next couple of years, there are additional expenses that we're going to be responsible for that we don't really have the mechanism or the means in place right now to cover. And about would be the pension. It's going to go up an additional $1.8 million to the city of Georgetown. Every time that we do a 3% raise for our employees, just a 3% raise, the payroll alone is $300,000, not including all the benefits. That probably bumps it up to, I'm going to say $500,000 a year when we do a 3% raise. So you think about that. That's another $500,000 a year just to do a 3% raise. And then we're short on the MAP funds. We don't get the gas tax money that we used to get to cover paving all the roads. We're at least $500,000 short on that expense every single year. And then we're learning more and more about the stormwater, which it's been a problem since I've been involved in city government. But we've got Strand and Associates that, they're working on the details. And they've given us some information. We got $82 million worth of improvements, stormwater improvements that we're responsible for. And there's one thing that's guaranteed. They're gonna fail. They're gonna need maintenance. They're gonna have to be repaired. They're gonna have to be replaced. That's our responsibility. And that's why the mayor and his staff have been talking to us about a stormwater management fee. So there's a lot to think about. And I'm not saying you're wrong on any of this. We all want to get to the same place. We just think that there's got to be an ongoing revenue stream to pay for 911, for the additional people, and to get the pay where we all want it to be. We all want it to be at the same place. We want to get them up to that level that you're talking about. We just think that it's got to be a two-step process to get there. Let's get through another quarter or the second quarter and see where we are before we take that leap of faith. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with this economy. I mean, it could get worse before it gets better. We just don't know. But we want to deal with the emergency situation that we feel like we have, especially with police right now.
Well, I mean, I think we're on the same page with that. We need to deal with the emergency situation. We need to move forward. You know, we're all thinking that. But I think we need to fully fund the police today. And that's the last thing I'm going to say. I've said my piece, and I really appreciate you all listening. But to me, the cost of losing experienced officers is huge. And, I mean, that's something that, we do not want to be on. We do not want Fox News and CNN at the front door. And, when we lose these experienced officers that know our town, that know our people, that to me is absolutely critical. And, I've said my piece and I've said my part. And again, as you say, we don't know what's going to happen. January things might be better. But, and I think too, January, we could have a new council as well. So there's a lot up in the air. And I appreciate, everything. But I think Toyota would understand, and they'd want their employees to live in a safe city, where they feel safe.
I guess our thought would be a $5,000 raise right now under these circumstances is a big deal. It's a really big deal, and it's a huge step forward. And we're not saying that we're done with it. We're going to come back. We're going to readdress it, and we hope that we have support then, to do so as well. We have a plan, and we might not all agree on exactly how to get there, but this is the path that we think is appropriate. It's just one that we've been working on for a long time. And we hope to have everybody's support, but at the end of the day, we're going to hopefully get this done. And
could I ask a question, David?
Go ahead, Tammy.
I wanted to ask you about the timeline. You mentioned earlier that the 911 fee could not be implemented until near the end of the year. What was the timeline that you had planned for the raises?
The 1st of October, first pay period in October is what
October of this year, you would do 5,000.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
our hope. That's our plan, assuming we can get the 911 fee passed and everybody's in support. I mean, that's going to be either an MO or a resolution at the next meeting.
And so that money, because we won't have the 911 money at that time, that money would have to come out of reserves. Is that correct?
It can come out of the CARES money.
So you're doing reserves no matter what you do.
Well, the CARES money is money that we're getting from the federal government.
Right.
And it's just like
it's one-time money.
Right. It's specifically designed for events like this. That's why they gave it to so many municipalities. And it's just like the PPP money that businesses received. It's just a short stimulus to kind of get them through a difficult stretch. I know it can be used for other things. There's a criteria that it can be used for, but anyway, for that short period of time, we're talking about October, November, December, 3 months is what we're talking about.
Thank you.
Well, David, I've got a question. Contrary to and what Polly was saying is police and an EMS and everybody else, but what another department that we're really having a hard time with keeping, and they're lining up to leave, is the fire department. We're going, if we don't address it with the fire department, we're going to be in a situation that Lexington was in, to where we have the fire departments that actually, our fire department will actually have stations that has to shut down because they don't have enough people. So the fire department needs to be very much included in this as well, which I know after speaking with you and Connie, it is.
It is.
But we cannot ignore them.
Absolutely.
And everybody has police. And don't get me wrong, that's where my heart is for many years. But you cannot ignore them. They're just as much as the police department has been. And Public Works, to their credit, they have been there as well. But what I want to ask you is, have we had discussions with, and I know it's an ever evolving thing. Have we had a discussion with across the street with Joe Pat and fiscal court to help kick in some of this money to cover the 911 system as well?
Well, we have had a conversation with the judge, and we have an interlocal agreement in place that outlines, the terms and the management and so forth. So they understand where we are in the situation that we're dealing with, but we haven't asked them for anything above and beyond. They realize that if we give the raises to dispatch that we're proposing, that they're going to have to come up with probably an additional $46,000 in their budget for this year to cover that bit of a shortfall. But the judge understands where we are, and I think he supports our efforts based on a conversation.
And absolutely. And, we have other people that are, and mention those top three, but, Public Works has been there every day. Parks and Rec has been there every day. Water company, they do a great job, as well as EMS. We cannot turn a blind eye to them. And I know that the police and fire department are top two. Don't get me wrong. But for us to sit here and go, well, you know what, you guys are great. We're going to push all the money to you, and, and ignore the rest is just, but I know your plan is not to ignore them, but those folks need to be recognized as well.
Todd, if I could
Yes.
clarify just maybe your one question to let everybody know. The fee that is being recommended tonight by the Finance Committee is only to cover the city's half of the 911 fee expenses. So any additional expenses, future expenses, the county will continue to fund their 50%. This would just be to cover our half.
Okay. I didn't know. And that's what I wondered if we were able to, and I don't mean to, strong arm the county, because that's not what it's about. But I think that, if we're going to, kick in this extra money, I think it's something that we definitely need to put in with the interlocal agreement and say, look, yes, the city's in trouble, having a tough time, but you know what? We've made a big commitment with the 911 center that we're all half owners of, and we got to take care of them. So.
Right. And Todd, this goes both ways. We're the administering agency. We're the technical employer of dispatch employees. Mm-hmm. So regardless of what happens, the county and the city are responsible for 50% of the budget. So at the beginning of, at budget time, Stacy and the mayor and others work together to put that budget together. And then they give that to the county to basically say, this is our dispatch budget. This is what you'll be responsible for. So we kind of work collaboratively in that sense. Same way for electrical inspection. It's an interlocal department, and they present that budget to us. So they'll continue to pay their 50%. And like David said, we've had that conversation. Actually, David had that conversation with Joe Pat, and he's very aware that, their fiscal responsibility for the dispatch department is probably going to increase. And he's on board with that and understands, just as we would be for EMS or electrical inspection. So.
Okay. That sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, David.
Yes, sir.
I know this is probably not what every one of us wanted to be able to do at the right time as far as give the whole amount, but we're trying to do something for the departments. We're trying to give them some kind of a raise to kind of say, we do support you. We're trying to do as much as we can do, but we're not going to stop here. We're going to continue on trying to raise revenue to be able to fulfill what we need to do to make them where they need to be.
Marvin, I think we've all said that. I hope I was clear about saying that's our goal. That's our plan. That's what we want to do. With the support of council, we will get that done. And, we could ask the two chiefs. I mean, they're on here tonight. I've had conversations with both of them, and I'd ask them, chiefs, do you all see this as being a positive first step in trying to move forward and get your departments where they need to be?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I know it's just an initial step. It's a good first step out of the gate. My request of all of you all is to not lose focus of the big picture. And that's, $5,000 is a nice gesture, and I hope and think my guys and gals will appreciate that. But keep in mind, they're $11,000 off the pace right now. So that's where we need to get to. And I hope that that's your promise to us. And, if we're getting out of the gate with $5,000, then, that's appreciative. And I thank you all. Thank Stacy, thank the mayor, David, Connie, all for your hard work and putting something together for us.
Council, I would only say that unless we go back to the mayor's comprehensive plan, it's not going to help our problem. The study was done. It was done right. The numbers are right. Nobody's been able to refute those numbers. And if you're giving me your word and you're giving the police officers of this community your word that we're going back to that study, and I think Eric would feel the same way, that and I think we're on board. But that original study is the employees have looked at that. They've studied it. They know it. There's nothing false about it. Nobody's contested it. And all we're asking for is to get them to average. And I think they deserve more, but I think they deserve that. And I think if that's your promise, then, we're going to move on and we're going to continue to grow from it. But that's what we got to be able to tell our employees.
That's our goal, Chief. And I guess specifically the question was, do you see this as being a very positive first step?
Yes, I think if this is the first step, then yes, you're exactly right. It is positive, and we'll sell it that way. And I speak for the police department. We'll continue to do our job. I know Eric and his first responders will always do their job. But yes, if as long as this is just the first step, I don't want us to get distracted. We've got to go back to the comprehensive study. In the end, that's what they're going to ask.
Absolutely.
To follow the comprehensive study.
That's certainly our goal, Chief. I appreciate the comments from both of you, and I appreciate the dialogue over the past, several weeks, however long it's been. The other thing that I'll point out is that, when we ask our constituents, if we do a poll or whatever the case may be, they may not know all the details and all the minutia that either we're privy to or that we're learning as we discuss and study these issues. We have a lot of insight. We have a lot of information that Stacy can provide, or Andrew and Devin, the mayor, obviously. So, there's, and Megan Miller. There's a lot that's gone into it. And sometimes it's not just as easy as a simple yes or no question that a survey might indicate. And I'm not belittling that at all. We value those opinions, but the 8 of us, along with, everybody that is involved in city government, there's just a lot to it. There are a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of minutia, and that's what helps us make these decisions. And anyway, we'll be glad to answer more questions, and we appreciate the dialogue, and we're ready to move this thing forward and try to get us to where we need to be.
Mayor, I have go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, sorry, Karen, go ahead. I'll wait for you until you get done. Go ahead.
I was just going to add a couple of quick questions. One's just Chase. During the, we talked earlier this year when the pandemic kind of started about if people couldn't pay their water bills, if you were going to give them extra time to get caught up and things like that. Did we have very many people that had trouble paying their water bills during this crisis?
We're tracking delinquent bills at about 12% currently, and our policy under the pandemic has not changed, that in accordance with the governor's recommendations, that we are not issuing any cutoffs or delinquent payment right now during the state of emergency. We don't feel that is the right move for us, for our customers. However, We are trying to make people aware through courtesy calls to the delinquent accounts that the outstanding amount is not going away. When the state of emergency is lifted, those dues will be called, and it'll be a thing that if they aren't paid, we will, and it's a large amount that's an inconvenience, or we will offer payment plans, but the balance of the accounts is not going away. We're just not doing cutoffs currently.
That's actually higher. I figured you'd have some, but that's actually a lot higher than I thought that you would tell us. So it's going to make it even more difficult for folks. But back to a question to David. You said the proposed raises that you want to bring next time around. What's the total of those proposed raises? How many $100,000 are we talking about?
Stacy might have to help us, and actually
Yeah.
Stacy might even have a spreadsheet that could help answer some additional questions.
Yeah.
Stacy, is that something you can help with?
Yes, Devin, can you give me permission to share?
Yeah, sorry, just a second.
Okay. I'll go ahead and read off the numbers really quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say, go ahead and read it. I'm working on it.
Okay. For the police raises, let me see if I can get the total. The total out of the general fund that would not be covered by the new 911 fee, or that would be covered by partially by the new 911 fee, I'm sorry. It's about $698,050. And
Okay.
then that's the total raises.
$698,000 is what the raises will be?
Yes.
Okay, and then how much money are we planning on collecting based on that $6 fee?
Let me double check this number. Let's see.
And if you just click share screen, Stacy, it's on.
Okay. Look at that. Okay. So this one, like you said, I'll send this out to everybody after the meeting. Like I said, we didn't send it out on Friday with the packet because the numbers were changing as we discussed some things. In year one, we approximated 13,461 units that we know of right now. That's the number of bills that GMWSS told us they currently generate at $6 a month. We would begin billing in December, so we would have earned revenue for December, even though we won't collect it until January. So we would have 7 months of revenue billed. That is $565,000. We talked about potentially collection fee. The dispatch budget, this is where Devin and I work together. Since we will not begin collecting the revenue or billing until December, we will offset approximately 7 months of our dispatch budget. So 7 months of our dispatch budget is $377,704. That would go towards the raises. So you can see that, and then actually, then this is half of the dispatcher salary adjustment, the $37,991, which gets them to the $18 starting hour pay. So year one, we actually show the excess simply because of the timing. If there's any questions about that, I can answer those in a second. I'm going to switch to a different tab. You should still be able to see it. So we talked about this. We're going to save $370 for the $1,000 raise, column D. That's what they decided to propose. we will save $377,700 for dispatch over the 7 months. Something we'll be talking about in more detail at the next meeting, but our incentive payments to Toyota, they have actually been reducing those since April. We were supposed to pay $1.5 million this year, which would be about $150,000 a month for 10 months. They usually don't collect in February and March. They've actually only been billing us $120,000 for 10 months. So they have gone ahead and reduced their billings to us. So we will see a $300,000 savings in the Toyota revenue. The dispatch raises, again, if we start collecting or billing the fee in December, the fee is eligible for expenses from that point forward. So we have 2 months of the dispatch raises that would not be eligible under the fee the way we're looking at it. Police raises for $5,000, fire raises, and the COLA for everybody else. It nets out to about $20,000 of either other revenues or reserves that need to be used for this particular plan. So if any of that doesn't make sense, let me know. Like I said, these were strictly calculation worksheets we used to determine the feasibility. And so that's the cost of the raises. And then quickly, I'm going to switch back to the 911 fee scenario to show that even though in the first few years we have an excess, once we get to year 4 and the maintenance starts kicking in, that's when we start breaking even. And by the end of year 15, we're at about 24,000 to the good at the end of 15 years. Again, these are all estimates and projections. But this is assuming we add headcount, assuming we give COLAs, things that we have typically done in the past. And of course, our half of the maintenance fee that will kick in year 4 of the radio system. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the numbers.
And one point, and I think David and Connie made this also earlier, we talk about the importance of this fee. I mean, we're naming it a user fee, and a user fee is associated with the service. So it can't outpace that service. It's the same thing we discussed with alcohol regulatory fees. There's very specific statutory language that we have to meet. Otherwise, we can't defend that fee. And if it ever comes to the point where we're evaluating, we could get to year 2 or 3 and say, you know what, we had no idea that we had this many units or this many users of the fee, and we need to come back to council and reevaluate. So Stacy's done a really good job of projecting, out 15 years, but we could get 2 years in, we could get 6 years in and have to take a step back based on data we have. So I do want to compliment Stacy for putting this spreadsheet together. This is not the only one she's put together. I've seen a number of them over the last week. So it's something that we're going to have to constantly monitor to make sure that it is really serving as a user fee and it's the right amount for our citizens and to serve the dispatch department, because that's truly what it's allowed to go to. That's why if you'll read in the ordinance, there's a specific section. We've got to have a separate account for this, and any excess is in that account and cannot be used for any other city expenses. So like I said, thanks to Stacy for that and giving us these numbers.
Could I ask, just as being a new council member, that year 4,
Yes.
$250,000 radio system maintenance, is that why you went to $8?
It
why
is.
you feared that?
We played with the numbers many different ways. As Devin said, this sheet had many different scenarios on it. Our attempt, or at least my attempt in helping Connie and David, was to get as close to net zero as we could. Obviously, a user fee should not create a significant surplus. There will be times you have surpluses and times you use that surplus, but this was what worked to get as close to net zero going out 15 years. And then as Devin said, it will have to be revisited. Any user fee should be revisited throughout the life of the user fee to make sure it's sufficient.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amy, when we got the proposal for the radio system, we knew it was important to look at the total cost to the useful life of the system, including all the maintenance. And we're under warranty for the first few years, and then this maintenance contract kicks in, and everything from software to hardware will be updated and kept fresh so that at the end of 15 years, we have a serviceable 911 system rather than one that's completely outdated. So we had them project those costs, and what you see are the city's half for that entire time period.
Thank you.
I have one more question if I could. David said something about an MO. What was that you said about bringing back a memorandum of understanding or something?
At the next meeting, we want to propose the raises that we talked about tonight. And it'll either be an MO or a resolution. I guess Devin would have to give us some advice on that. But that's our plan, is to run them parallel to each other.
Right. If
We
assuming
may have
that
to,
the
do a
feedback-
change to the personnel ordinance if any of these folks have moved out of their salary range, and that can all be done simultaneously.
Okay.
like Mayor said, we would need a budget amendment. But in typical scenarios, you don't usually you either give raises through the budget or smaller, individualistic raises that the mayor can give within pay grades. But with this being a bigger action, I would recommend a municipal order since it requires funding, and then a subsequent budget amendment to cover that.
Yeah, that's one of the things coming from Celeste. I was trying to understand the numbers, and I can't see it very well, but you'll send it to us. But that's one of the things that was strongly said and advocated for. This is so awkward to try to make major decisions for the city like this, and to get to talk to people to see what they want us to do. But that's one of the things that they said. They wanted to make sure all of this money. Now I think most of them understand that it's not directly going to the employees, but what they understand is because we can pay this to 911, then we're able to take that money. So they want to see all of that money that is, let's say, saved from the general budget for 911. They want all of that to go to the salary. So that's what I was trying to figure out, the salaries and what that amount would be. And if I saw it correctly, we'll have to go in about $20,000 won't be covered off of this fee for this year. Is that right or wrong?
That's right, Karen.
Okay. All right. So this year, when it goes into effect, it will cover this year, and then whatever it generates next year, that's, I think, the people want to see, to make sure that the salaries are given so that we can get the 911 responders, especially up on top where they need to be. One of the reasons the police and the fire is kind of getting a little bit on the side for this. It's just that, it's as Polly said, it's such a new world out there than what it was. And it's the police that you're seeing all over cities, all over the nation, talking about defunding the police. And this community does not want to see their police defunded. They want to see the police support it. And they want us to support the police too. Even though they don't like the tax, they don't like it, put it on the water bill, but they don't want to not have their police. And we've had over the last 2 weeks, flat out crazy, like big city stuff going on in this community. And that scares me, from the girl that grew up in this community, to see the changes that we've always had these last 30 years have been positive, and now all of a sudden we're living in a danger zone, is very uncomfortable. So the public, for the most part, is okay with it, as long as that money that we're saving off of the 911 shifting in the budget doesn't go for projects, fluffy projects. So I'll say they want it to go to the employees, particularly the police and the fire, our first responders. So I do want more information spreadsheets and more information, numbers, actual numbers before next week. And if you don't mind, Stacy, I know you said you'd send them to us. If you can kind of get them to us early so I can have some time to decipher them. So.
Karen, I just want to address that. The whole purpose of doing the 911 and getting them up and running because of the obsolete landlines. So that funding kind of went away and the general budget's been taking care of that. So making this happen, like David has said, and we've discussed so many times, that this is the first step. And it's absolutely just one step to move forward. And the money is going to free up the general fund so that we can give the raises that we've talked about. And it is going to be a deficit of $20,000 that we'll have to take out of the CARES Act or out of our fund balance. But it is just step one. We intend to move forward with the step two to make sure that those raises that our first responders are going to be average. And, I don't even like to use the word average for our first responders because they're above that. They're my heroes. Just what they do and the way they do take care of our community, being short-staffed and short-handed and doing it with this deficit. So our goal is definitely to move forward and to make this happen for all of them. Because being on council all this time, I've seen how we've just done the 2.1 and the $500 because of the money and because of the revenue. So the information that the mayor and his team put together and gave us has opened our eyes. So this is absolutely what we're going to do. And it is going to go for the raises. Absolutely. I just want to respond to that.
Thank you, Connie. I appreciate that. And honestly, and we're talking about this, talk about phase 2 of this, what we need to do. One of the things, the comments that are out there is for us to really tighten up the budget. Now, I've told people that fire and our emergency services take up most of our budgets. And a lot of that does because of retirement and those types of things that you don't see on the front end. But one of the things they want us to do, and I think we should do, is because we need to go back and take the budget apart and really look at the budget. The mayor said there's nothing else to cut and all that. There's always something that can be tweaked in a budget. Go back and really take a hard look at it before we go further with anything else. Because even though this is going to be a hardship on people with this, but it's a necessary step. Chase just said we've got 12% of the people that can't pay their water bill. And now you're going to add this on it. Next year, the water bill is going to be even higher. So we have to consider those people as well as we move forward. But on the flip side of it, if I call the police, I want them to be able to come and respond to me, because these days crime is not simple things in Georgetown. It's hardcore big city stuff now. So I want the police. So there is a balance between that. But as we go further and look at it, I would love for the council, instead of keeping all of this so tightly in committee, I would really like to pull it out into council and have some council workshops. So we're all together making decisions, and then kind of get on pages together, and then maybe send it back for the details into the committees and stuff like that, because we've done a lot through committees that haven't been done through the entire council really having feedback before it got here. So that's what I'd like to see on the future, because the mayor talked about 5 more taxes, and the community wants to see their 911s, their responders taken care of, but I don't think they want 5 more taxes. So I think we need to get together on it and see what is most efficient and what we could do the greatest with. So that's back to you all.
Good comments.
Yeah. Can I make a comment if I could? I don't know if Chief Balsey's and Chief Colson are still on the line or not. If they are, I've heard David mention it tonight. I've heard Connie mention it. I think Marvin mentioned it. Specifically to Chief Balsey, this is a first step. This is not the only step, but this is the first step, or as Connie stated, the first piece of the puzzle. So I think the commitment is there, at least from the majority of us, if not all of us, that we're going to get there. To Chief Balsey, to all the department heads that might be on the line. I think I saw Chief Sagas Chief Bruin on the line earlier. Apologize, Chief Bruin. All of our city employees are important to us. It's not just fire and the fire department and police department. All the city employees are important. And tonight's just the first step. Going back to Chief Balsey, I'm kind of jumping around because I don't want to take up too much time. But Chief Balsey, defunding the police is not an option here in Georgetown. I hope to none of us. It should never be an option. We're going to get there. We appreciate all of our department heads and city employees. To the mayor and Stacy, thank you for your hard work on this topic tonight. Dave and Connie, thank you as well. Again, some of us might be unhappy with what we're talking about tonight. Hopefully most of us, if not all of us, are happy. We got to be responsible, but at the same time, we got to move forward. And this is just the first step. Thank you.
David, do you all think, is council ready for first reading of the ordinance, or are there further questions?
Let's read, Mayor.
Ready for the read, sir.
Tracy, if you do first reading of the ordinance, please.
Yes, sir. An ordinance adding a new article to Georgetown Code of Ordinances, Chapter 19, providing for the imposition of a 911 service fee to support the operations of the Georgetown Scott County 911 Center. Summary. 1, provides for the imposition of a monthly 911 service fee on every occupied unit in the city of Georgetown. 2, states a schedule of fees, mechanism for collection of the fees, and requirements for excess funds and revenue monitoring. 3, provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read for the first time, August 24th, 2020.
Thank you. That will constitute first reading. Connie and David, thank you for the work in preparing that for the council. Before we move on to the next agenda item, ever since we began the financial analysis, I've been willing to talk with the council about what our findings were and what we thought was necessary. And I've been willing to lay out what I think is a necessary path forward, even though not all those steps are embraced by everyone, and all of them will not make folks happy. But I'm more than willing to play that role. But I do want to be clear with a couple of things. At the last council meeting, I laid out what I thought was a reasonable 6-point plan that the council needed to consider. And since that time, I've heard it referred to as 7 taxes or more, I don't know, different taxes. Of the 6 items that I mentioned, 2 are user fees, a utility, the 911 fee, and discussion of a stormwater utility are utilities. 1, I've recommended that the council consider a gross receipts tax would be a substantial decrease in the rate that we currently have for net profits. The 6th point was impact fees, which are paid by developers, and I think most folks are in favor of. I did mention 2 taxes out of my 6 points that I think the council needs to look at. And I'm not afraid to say those, but they're not 6 taxes and they're not 7 taxes. Out of my 6 points, there are 2 taxes. And one is an insurance premium tax, where our 5% rate is tied for the lowest rate of all of our 18 peer cities. The other one is our payroll tax, which is tied for the lowest with 2 other cities out of our 18 peer cities. So I'm happy to wear the label that any of you wish to give me, but out of a 6-point plan, 2 are actually tax increases. And I'm more than happy to lead that conversation with the council at the right time. If there's nothing else on item 8, if we move to item 9, under Human Resources is the first reading of an amendment to the personnel ordinance involving the fire marshal and assistant fire chief positions. We gave Eric the remarkable responsibility of appointing him as fire chief, but told him he could not have an assistant chief, even though he had been an assistant chief and helped John Ward immensely. We have a plan. Eric has worked on a plan closely with our fire marshal, Tim Thompson, to transition Tim into an assistant chief role, an assistant chief title that will help him do his work. And I think is appropriate for Eric to have that managed, for Chief Colson to have that management assistance, and for Fire Marshal Thompson to have the reward that he's worked very hard for. In making this move, we'll be moving Mr. Thompson from a non-exempt position where he was earning overtime to a salaried position where he will not. And we think it's going to just about break even for him. We're going to give him more responsibility and more work and the same pay, Tim. But it's an appropriate step. It may work out during the year that these salaries, current and proposed, diverge a very little bit. And Stacy and I will track that and bring that back to you if we need to bring that to your attention. But this is something that I've worked with Chief Colson on, I've worked with Fire Marshal Thompson on, and recommend to the council. Chief, anything you'd like to add to all that?
I would just add that, structurally for our command staff, this makes sense, makes us more efficient. Whoever does fill the assistant chief's vacancy that I created by getting this opportunity, that position has a full plate, and especially since we've obtained code enforcement and Tim oversees that, his plate is full too. So there's no reason that the assistant chief should try to keep tabs or keep account of what Tim's trying to do. And I think it'll make us operationally much more efficient. The past 3 years on average, Tim has averaged $4,500 in overtime, and year to date in this fiscal year, $1,740. So the offsets, like the mayor mentioned, I do believe it'll be most likely a savings to the city, if not simply a break-even point. But that would be all I have to add to that. So.
Thank you. If there are no questions, I'll ask Tracy to read first reading of the ordinance.
An ordinance amending the position of Assistant Fire Chief and Fire Marshal to Assistant Fire Chief of Operations and Assistant Fire Chief of Prevention, Fire Marshal, and changing the Assistant Fire Chief of Prevention, Fire Marshal from grade 9 to grade 10 and designating that position as exempt. 1. Summary. Amends Section 2-11C of the Code of Ordinances, which sets forth the classifications, associated pay grades, and authorized positions for each department to change the position of Assistant Fire Chief to Assistant Fire Chief of Operations and the position of Fire Marshal to Assistant Fire Chief of Prevention, and making the latter of these a grade 10 exempt position. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read for the first time, August 24th, 2020.
Thank you. That will constitute first reading. Thank you to Mr. Showalter and Mr. Stone for sponsoring that ordinance. Item 10 on your agenda, Public Works. Robert, have you been standing the whole meeting out there?
You would ask me something. I had on mute.
It just looked like you've been standing up the whole meeting.
No, I was walking around doing things. I can't sit still.
Okay. Robert's on with us tonight. We've got a municipal order approving the purchase of Herbie's. So you're needing a new truckload, Robert.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a motion for approval of that?
I'll make a
moved, Mayor.
motion.
Thank you. Motion's been made. And did I miss a second?
Second, Mayor.
Thank you. If there are no questions for Robert, all in favor say aye.
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 And
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. Item B under Public Works is kind of a really fun thing for the council to do. I think a very significant thing for the council to do. It's a municipal order changing Conley Avenue to McIntyre Lane. There's only one house on Conley Avenue, and it belongs to William McIntyre, who has done so much for our community. And his son has contacted us. Mr. McIntyre made a commitment to the folks who lived in the house on Conley Lane that he would never ask to change the name of the street while they were alive. They passed away recently, and now Mr. McIntyre would like to, he's in pretty poor health, and I think he would like to see this street named McIntyre Lane, and certainly this gentleman and his family have earned that.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Are there any opposed? This is one that came up very quickly. I'd like to thank Arlene Wilson for running point and getting with planning and zoning, and with Jared Holland, who is in charge of naming streets for the county or tracking streets for the county. So this happened very quickly. Thank you for your help. Chief Ossie, item 11 on the agenda, we have a municipal order approving some surplus vehicles. Not terribly exciting for you to speak to, but anything we need to know about that, Chief?
No, they're just old clunkers.
Okay. Is there a motion to surplus the old clunkers?
I'll move.
Second.
And seconded. And if there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
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 And are there any opposed? Good, thank you. That completes everything on my agenda, and it leaves us with council comments. So once again, I'm not sure if this is the right order or not, but the way the electronic order is on my screen. Connie, could we start with you?
Sure, Mayor. Again, I just want to reiterate, I appreciate everybody's hard work, and I know this is a tough time for all of us, and I'm very thankful for our first responders, and that's really about all I have right now, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark.
Yeah, I wanted to add something. I've heard multiple times tonight in this discussion that we've had, or this meeting, that we do have a plan. Well, I agree. I think there is a plan. And again, tonight, you know what? That's not the right word to choose. I believe there is a plan. I don't think there is one. I believe there is one. We have a plan. Tonight is the first piece of the puzzle. And thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mark. Tammy?
I just want to reiterate what everyone else has said. Thank you so much to David and Connie for putting in the hard work. I also want to say that I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts with each of you as you're working on these situations. Mayor, thank you for everything that you've done, and for your staff for putting this out there to begin with, and alerting the community. It makes our job easier when we have this information in front of us. And you have a promise from me that it will not end here. This is the first step. Thank you.
Thank you. Polly?
All righty, just a couple things. Eddie is not on the call tonight, right?
He was earlier, but I don't see him now.
Okay, I needed to ask him
Oh,
about.
there he is. He's with us.
He's hiding. He knows I'm going to ask him about streetlights and stop signs. Any update about over on Gano and the Tree Streets, Eddie, with lighting? You're on mute.
Muted, Eddie.
You're muted.
That mute button's down at the bottom of the screen. Now he's gone.
Well, I'll move on.
I'm sorry, Polly. We'll be glad to. I'll have him contact you tomorrow with that answer.
That's okay.
Polly.
There he is.
There he is.
You're still muted, Eddie.
I'm muted. It's on the upper right button.
Sorry.
You're good.
I apologize. Yes, we passed the streetlight request to KU. And so KU is our streetlight people. They manage the streetlight program. We just tell them that you have requests for streetlights, and we'll move forward with that.
Okay. All righty. Well, I will let Ms. Schwartz know. And just a quick final thing. I appreciate our discussion about tonight about the 911, and I think we all really talked things through. And the chiefs are in a very difficult situation here, and I do know that people, you all had worked so hard. Stacy and the mayor and Connie and David and others, Andrew and Devin, on the study. That was done back last fall, winter. And, people do have that number in their head. And I think a lot prior to the pandemic, we're planning for that. So that's just almost on that. And then, I think a lot of times in today's world, we really all have to work together and not belittle those that have different opinions than us. And someone posted something I thought was real interesting. To create beautiful content and to transcend bitterness and be better even when we disagree. And I'd really like to see us all work towards that. And I think we are. But I just appreciate all the work everybody's put in on this. And I know our first responders really do as well. And I thank you all for everything that you've done. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. David.
Mayor, like everyone else, I want to thank you for your leadership and bringing this information to us as early as you did. Without that, we wouldn't be prepared to do what we're doing right now. And I know it's been kind of a tough and bumpy road with everything that's going on. But thank you for that, Mayor, and thank you for the staff that you had involved in it. And I want to thank the other council members. We had really good input from everybody. I appreciate the dialogue, and I'm excited for the employees and moving forward on what needs to be done. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Marvin Thompson on Tim Thompson's computer.
How you save money, Mayor.
Exactly.
Just want to say thanks to you and your staff and to Connie and David for the work they put into this, and to our chiefs and our employees. This is just the first step of the things that we have to do. It's not we want to do them, we need to do them, but we have to do this, and we will continue on doing it. I promise you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Marvin. Karen.
Thank you. Somehow I have this strange picture up there that has appeared, and I'm pushed a button and it happened out of my gallery, and I'm kind of afraid to push the button again because there's pictures in my gallery I really don't want the public to see. So
But it's a really good picture.
it was a vacation. It was a vacation picture, but anyway, I do have a question. I've had several people talk to me about the bypass over by Kroger's, the new entrance exit, the kind of the roundabout kind of thing. And I told them that was the state directed us in that, and make sure I'm right on that. And then, but they say it's very dangerous and it's not safe and it's dark and they're having a lot of trouble. I don't know if the police have had accidents over there yet, but a lot of them are telling me they're on the verge of having accidents. So did the state do that, require that design?
Yes. And there was a lot of debate that went into that, Karen. Fiscal court got involved. Some residents really advocated for an at-grade traffic light at that intersection. And District 7, their engineers were convinced that what's called, I think, a modified J-turn is actually a safer at-grade crossing than a traffic light. If you'll do some research on J-turns, it might take folks some getting used to, but District 7 says that they have statistics that show it's a safer solution than actually an at-grade intersection. So I hope folks like a roundabout can get used to the way it works and give it an opportunity to work the way it's designed to. But it's gotten a lot of conversation. You're right about that.
Okay, I'll take that back to them. And one last thing, Mayor, I will say a tax and a fee, they are the same yet different, but the bottom line is they both come out of the pockets of the taxpayers, regardless which way you talk to it and call it. But we do need to move forward and take care of some things in the city that we haven't taken care of. So thank you all for all of it, and have a great night. That's all for me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Hey, Todd, your turn.
Well, thank you, Mayor. First off, Polly, I hope that you took no offense by my comments. And if you did, I do humbly apologize. I don't ever mean to jump on anybody. And if I did, I'm sorry.
I wasn't talking about you. You're safe. You're my cousin, so you're okay.
That's okay.
I'm not talking about you.
But one thing I wanted to thank is everybody's hard work. Because everybody did have input in this. I know David and Connie took the lead on it with the mayor's staff, but you know, this is a group effort, and we are a team. So, you know, all the way down to the employees, you know, thank everybody. Work with us, stay with us. It's going to be a great thing because we do have great things in place that's coming. And then one thing I've got for Eddie is did see that the College Street in front of Anderson Hall, where we had the water main that burst, have we got that fixed? Because there was a vehicle that was damaged. I believe somebody had a damaged oil pan.
Yeah. So the background of that, and Chase can chime in too, because he knows about this, is there was a steam line that runs under the road, under College Street, by the dorms. And the heat from the steam line actually melted the water lines and the sewer lines. And it created a big, you know, a burst of pipe and a lot of, it tore the pavement up, it tore the street up. And they got it under control. They're going to fix it back. But it's just taking a little while to get, you know, all the different utility contractors in there to get them to do what they need to do to fix it, and the road will be put back, and it'll be good. In the interim, it's going to be disruptive, and you know, but it'll get fixed.
Okay, that was something that I did see and was passed on to me as well. And then to chime in with Karen on the bypass where the J turns are, I leave for work usually between 4:30 and 5 in the morning, and there's one street light out there, and it is dark, and you know, with Toyota traffic and such, it's makes it a little tough. But thank you all. I hope everyone has a good evening.
Thank you, Todd. Anything else come before the council this evening? Very thorough and productive meeting. I thank everybody for their attention and conversation, and we will stand adjourned. Y'all have a good night.
Take care.